Good evening. Tonight's story begins with a phone call no father ever wants to receive. What looked like a warm, ordinary relationship had already started to rot underneath, and one careless decision soon exposed something far worse than simple dishonesty. Before we begin, a brief disclosure. The voices in this story were created with AI assistance, but the writing, structure, and direction are human. What follows is a fictionalized narrative inspired by relationship and family drama shared online. Now, enjoy the story.
Hotel security called me before my girlfriend did. They said they had my 6-year-old in the back office near Shuttle Lot C. He had one of his headphones, one melted popsicle, and a neon wristband from somewhere she later insisted he'd never been. I drove 11 minutes. I know because I counted every one of them by the dashboard clock, the way you do when your hands are too tight on the wheel to check your phone. When I got there, Benji was sitting on a folding chair with a cold towel around his neck and his legs swinging about, 4 inches off the ground. He wasn't crying. He'd moved past crying into that place where he gets very still and starts organizing things. In this case, a row of sugar packets he'd lined up along the armrest by color. He looked up at me and said, "We were at the cactus place first." I didn't know what that meant yet. Sierra arrived 6 minutes after me. I know because I was still holding Benji when the door opened and she walked in with her sunglasses pushed up on her head like she'd just come from brunch, not from losing my kid. That was the first thing I noticed. She wasn't out of breath. Her hands weren't shaking. She walked in the way you walk into a restaurant where you have a reservation, aware of the room, checking Ekin who was watching. "Oh my God," she said. "Babe, I'm so sorry." I literally stepped away for like 20 minutes. She knelt next to Benji. He didn't lean into her. "I thought he was near the fountain," she said, looking at me. There was a whole group there. I didn't think he'd just walk. I didn't say anything yet. I was doing the thing I do, which is letting the facts line up before I open my mouth. Because once I open my mouth, I mean what I say, and I don't get to take it back. I looked at Benji's wrist. Why is he wearing that? The wristband was neon green, the kind they put on you at a venue. The kind that says, "You've been checked in somewhere," Sierra answered fast. Too fast. "It's just from one of the houses." Everybody was stopping in places. One of the houses. Everybody. She said it like it was nothing. Like she was describing a mall crawl and not whatever had put my son in a security office with a cold towel on his neck. But here's the thing about people who lie casually. They over-answer. They give you more than the question asked. I asked about the wristband. She told me about houses, plural. Everybody stopping. She'd confessed more than she needed to because she was filling space and scared people fill space. I filed that. Benji tugged my sleeve. "You said pool first," he told Sierra. Not accusatory. Just correcting the record, the way kids do when you tell them Tuesday. And it was actually Wednesday. To him, this was a factual error, not a confrontation. Sierra blinked. "Yeah, baby, we did the pool. And then we went for a little walk." Benji didn't smile back. He went back to his sugar packets. 2 days before the security office, Sierra pitched the trip as a desert weekend. Not a festival. Not an event. A weekend. "There's this resort that does a pool and dinner thing," she said. We were on the couch. Benji was asleep in the next room. She had her laptop open, which I now understand was never a casual detail. Sierra's laptop open meant she was building something, always. But at the time it just looked like a person scrolling before bed. Pool during the day. Nice dinner, maybe one-day thing nearby, like a market or something. Super chill. She looked at me. "I'm trying to be part of your real life, Mason. Not just the easy parts." She said exactly what a single dad like me wanted to hear, and I believed her. Before we left, she asked me to send her 2 photos. "The one of you 2 at the farmer's market," she said, "and the one where he's asleep on your shoulder. Not the goofy one, the warmer one." "What for?" "I'm putting a little deck together. Real-life stuff plays better than polished stuff." She said it the way someone talks about work, shop talk. I didn't think anything of it. A deck, real-life stuff. She was in branding. That's how branding people talk. I sent the photos. That night, after I booked the room, I noticed a charge on the shared card I shouldn't have seen yet. We hadn't left. SOL household. $380. I almost asked. Then I figured it was part of the resort package, maybe a deposit, and went to sleep. The first day looked fine. Sierra helped Benji with sunscreen. She knew the order, arms first, then face, then ears, because he hates ears last and she'd learned that. She adjusted his headphones before the shuttle stop, where it got loud. She held his hand crossing the parking lot without being asked. "These details matter, because I need you to understand. She wasn't faking all of it. That's what makes this worse. She was good with him in real ways. She'd learned his rhythms. She knew that loud plus bright plus strangers equaled a shutdown, and she'd gotten good at reading the early signs. At the shuttle stop, Benji watched a pack of sunburned girls in crochet tops and cowboy boots spill out laughing glitter on their shoulders, selfie sticks waving like parade flags. He studied them with the concentration of a nature documentary narrator, and said very seriously, "This place is kind of 6'7". Sierra laughed. "That is not a real description." Benji shrugged. "It is if it's too much." I laughed too. Sierra did, eventually. 6'7". It's a thing between me and Benji. Our scale. 1 is fine, 10 is full meltdown, and anything past 6 means the world is starting to get too big and too fast. He'd never explained it to Sierra. She'd never asked. She just heard a weird kid phrase and let it go. At the pool, Benji declared himself Pool Benji and spent 40 minutes trying to convince a resort cat to sit on his towel. Sierra took photos. She always took photos. But this time I noticed her adjusting the angles more than usual. Zooming, cropping, flipping through the last 4 shots and deleting 3. "Which one?" she asked me, holding up her phone. 2 shots of me and Benji at the pool edge. For what? Just for my grid, maybe stories. She tilted her head. Brands always spots some feels lived in. She said it like a weather report. Brands. Lived in, the vocabulary of her work, not the vocabulary of a plan. I heard it, processed it as shop talk and moved on. Later, while Sierra was on a call by the lobby, Benji sat next to me and pointed at her through the glass doors. She was pacing, phone to her ear, doing that thing where she gestures even though no one can see her hands. "That's Picture Sierra," he said. "What?" "She's being Picture Sierra. She does that when she's working. As opposed to what?" He thought about it. "Pool Sierra is nicer." I ruffled his hair. "You've got a whole system, huh?" "Yeah." He said it like I'd asked if water was wet. But here's the scene I keep going back to. The one I should have read differently. Benji knocked over a glass of iced tea at dinner. Not a tantrum, just kid elbows. The glass hit the table, tea went everywhere, and for about half a second Sierra froze. Not the freeze of surprise. The freeze of someone calculating. Her eyes went to the phone on the table first, checking if it got wet, then to Benji, then to me. Half a second. Maybe less. She recovered, grabbed napkins, said, "No big deal, buddy," mopped it up. Perfect response. But the sequence was wrong. Phone, kid, me. In that order. And later that night, Benji didn't want to pose for a photo Sierra wanted at the fire pit. "Come on, just one more," she said. "No, Benji, just look at me for 1 second. No, I'm done." She laughed. But the laugh had a seam in it. Something pressed. Then she looked at me and said, "He's easier when he knows what the picture is." She meant it as a parenting observation. Like she was helping. But what she'd actually said, if you strip the tone away, was, "Your son is easier to use when he understands what he's being used for." I didn't hear it that way at the time. I heard a girlfriend trying to take a nice photo. I'm not a man who tracks every dollar, but I noticed patterns. Each one was small enough to feel petty if I questioned it. And Sierra had a gift for making financial questions feel like character flaws. "You always clock the charge before the effort," she said once, when I asked about a restaurant tab that seemed high. But that evening I checked the shared card again and saw a second charge I didn't recognize. Myridge House, Gate ADD on, $220. I showed her. "That's not what it sounds like," she said. "What does it sound like?" "It sounds like something sketchy, and it's not. It's an add-on for the pool house. Extra towels and a cabana thing." She didn't show me a receipt. She didn't pull up the booking. She just explained, and then she changed the subject to dinner, and I let her, because I was tired, and the desert heat makes you slow, and I was still operating on the assumption that this was a person who was trying. I let her. That's the part I have to sit with. Day 3. I had to handle something for work. A call I couldn't move, maybe 90 minutes total. I was clear about the plan. "Benji stays at the pool," I said. "In the resort area, no shuttle, no side trips. If he gets tired, take him back to the room. If anything feels off, call me. Mason." She put her hand on my arm. "I've got him." 3 words. Steady, eye contact. The kind of assurance that's supposed to end a conversation. I believed her, again. Before I walked out, I looked back. Benji was watching Sierra from the bed. She was changing, not into a swimsuit, into something else, a different outfit, event clothes. "Are we still pool?" Benji asked her, "Or picture?" He asked it the way you ask someone if it's still raining. A logistics question, not a judgment, but the fact that a 6-year-old had developed a binary classification system for his dad's girlfriend. Pool or picture, real or performing, should have stopped me at the door. It didn't. I had a call. I left. 93 minutes later, hotel security called. Not Sierra. Security. I've already told you what I found in that office. Benji on a folding chair.
Sugar packets in a row.
One headphone. Cold towel. But here's what I haven't told you yet. When I knelt in front of him and asked what happened, Benji didn't cry. He reported. The way he does when something has been too much, and he's retreated into the part of his brain that organizes instead of feels. We went in a car, he said. Not our car. A white one. Where? The cactus place. It had music. What kind of music? Loud. And there was a shark fountain. A fountain shaped like a shark? Yeah. Sierra said, stand here. She said, just a minute. And then? He looked at his hands. It got 6-7. I knew exactly what he meant before I could explain it to anyone else in the room. Too loud, too bright, too many people moving at once. The kind of chaos adults call a vibe and kids experience as a warning. I looked at him more carefully. One headphone. The other was gone. Probably dropped somewhere in a crowd no 6-year-old should have been in. The neon wristband on his left wrist, the kind venues use for check-in. And on his thigh, a crumpled sticker, printed with just the number 67. The kind of meaningless freebie only a house full of people living on vibes would consider profound. 67. Even the sticker was a 6-7. Benji hadn't noticed the coincidence, but I couldn't stop staring at it. Sierra arrived. You know how she arrived, calm, glasses up, walking like she had a reservation. It was a controlled house event, she said. Like, not a random field. There were people everywhere, staff. It was safe. You took him off the resort for a short stop. On the way to, it doesn't matter, the point is, he's fine. He was in a security office. Because he walked. Kids walk, Mason. He got curious and he walked to a shuttle area and someone brought him here. That's what happened. You were supposed to be at the pool. We were at the pool. And then we went for a little drive. It was spontaneous. She was building a version. I could hear the architecture of it. Each sentence load-bearing, designed to hold the next one up. A controlled event. Staff everywhere spontaneous. He walked. Then why didn't you call me first? She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. I was trying to find him before I didn't want to scare you, security. I know. You didn't find him. You didn't call me. Security called me. She didn't answer. She looked at Benji. Benji didn't look at her. He was still organizing sugar packets. I picked him up. He wrapped his legs around me and put his face against my neck, and I felt his whole body unclench, like he'd been holding it together with rubber bands, and someone had finally cut them. I carried him out. What I had includes a 6-year-old's fragmented account, a neon wristband, 2 charges I couldn't fully explain, and a girlfriend whose story had shifted 3 times in 20 minutes, but I didn't have proof of why. You're doing that thing, she said that night, after Benji was asleep, where you take one bad moment and turn it into a whole case. You took my son to a festival house. I took him to a stop, one stop, on a drive. And I shouldn't have. I said that. What else do you want me to say? Why didn't you tell me you were leaving the resort? 'Cause I knew you'd say no and I thought it would be fine. And it was fine until he wandered. It was not fine. He's okay, Mason. Look at him. He's sleeping. He's fine. She was using his safety as evidence that the danger didn't matter. He survived, therefore the risk was acceptable. It's the logic of someone who has never been responsible for a life they didn't choose. That evening I was sitting with Benji while he drew. He held up his wrist, the wristband was still on, because I hadn't cut it off yet, because some part of me knew I might need it. He looked at it and said, matter-of-factly, this was for picture people. What do you mean? At the cactus house. They gave it to you when you came in. Sierra got one too. Hers was pink op picture people? Yeah, like people who take pictures of stuff. Sierra knew them. He said it and went back to drawing. He didn't know what he'd just told me. He didn't know that picture people, and Sierra knew them, turned a spontaneous stop into a planned one. Turned I just swung by into, I had a wristband waiting for me. The why came the next morning, and it didn't come from me. It came from Talia. I think what happened was this. After she hung up with me, Talia sat with it. She'd defended Sierra because that's what you do for friends. You assume the best, you smooth the edges, you say, it's not that deep. But something about the kid in the security office kept working on her. Maybe it was the wristband detail. Maybe it was the fact that Sierra had called Talia before she called me or security, which meant Sierra's first instinct when she lost my son wasn't to find him. It was to manage the narrative. Whatever it was, Talia sent me a screenshot at 7:14 a.m. No preamble. No, hey, I've been thinking. Just a screenshot of a group chat from 3 weeks earlier, Sierra and 4 other people, names I didn't recognize. The messages, Sierra. The family angle helps. Brands get weirdly obsessed with anything that feels soft and real. Sierra, I can bring them by for first hour content and then break off. Them, not him. Not my boyfriend and his son. Them, like props in a staging direction. I read it 4 times. Then I read it again. First hour content. She'd planned it, not the disaster. She hadn't planned to lose Benji, but she'd planned to bring us. She'd planned the angle. The deck she'd asked me to help with, the farmer's market photo, the sleeping on my shoulder photo, that wasn't a mood board. That was a pitch. She'd been building a visual case for her brand that included us. And the desert trip was the shoot. The pool, the nice dinner, the maybe one day thing. All real, but also all set dressing for the part she actually needed. First hour content at a venue that cared about optics.
Family friendly enough.
She'd said that when she pitched the trip. I heard it as reassurance. Everything I'd filed, the careful photo cropping, the deck request, the brands respond to things that feel lived in. Every seed she'd planted clicked into place like tumblers in a lock. Sierra didn't need a family. She needed family optics, and she'd found a single dad with a photogenic kid and a wound that made him easy to convince. I didn't plan a scene. I went back to the villa to get Benji's charger and the card I'd left on the kitchen counter. Sierra was there with 3 of her friends. The desert crew, laptops and iced coffees, and someone's speaker playing something with no lyrics. The kind of room that looks like a meeting but calls itself hanging out. She saw me and knew. I don't know how. Maybe it was my face. Maybe it was the fact that I was carrying Benji's backpack like a man who was leaving, not a man who was grabbing a charger. She went first. That's important. She didn't wait for me to say anything. She seized the frame. He's doing that thing, she said to the room, casual, controlled. Where he turns one bad moment into a whole indictment. A girl I didn't know nodded. Benji wandered, Sierra continued. I made a mistake. I already said that. And now he wants to make me into a monster. And now he's pulling receipts, said someone on the couch. Like this was some scheme. I looked at Sierra. She looked back at me with an expression I'd seen before. The one she uses when she's about to post something she knows will get engagement. Not angry, not scared. Positioned. Then Talia walked in from the patio. I hadn't known she was there. No, Talia said. Not loud, not dramatic. The flat voice of someone who'd been up since 7 a.m. deciding whether to do this. Tell them why you wanted the photos. Sierra's head turned. What? The photos, the deck, the family angle. Tell them, that's not what this is. Then what is it? Talia, you're being... Talia put her phone on the kitchen island. Screen up the screenshot. For about 3 seconds, the room did that thing where everyone is reading but no one wants to be the first to react. Then Sierra reached for the phone. That's out of context, she said. What's the context? Talia asked. Everyone in this industry talks like that. It's how you pitch. It doesn't mean I was using anyone. You said I can bring them by for first hour content, Talia said. Them. His kid. Someone on the couch put their laptop down. That's not. Sierra started. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. You brought my son somewhere you said he wasn't going, I said. You left him there. And before that, you asked me for photos of him sleeping on my shoulder so you could build a brand deck around what we look like together. The room was quiet, not movie quiet. The speaker was still playing. Someone's phone buzzed. But the conversation was over, and everyone knew it. Talia said the thing I think she'd been carrying since the security office. You used the kid to get access? Sierra's jaw tightened. I didn't use anyone. I included them. There's a difference, is there? Talia asked. Because he was in a security office, and you were in a brand house. Sierra looked at me. For a moment, just a moment, I saw something that wasn't performance. Something cracked and young and genuinely confused about how she'd ended up here, in a kitchen, being looked at like this. Then she blinked, and it was gone and she was packaging again. You're all acting like I planned for him to get lost. I didn't plan that. I would never plan that. Nobody said you planned to lose him, I said. I'm saying you planned to bring him, to a place you lied about. For a reason you never told me. She didn't answer. I took the card off the counter, put Benji's charger in his backpack, and walked out. I did what I do. I made a list, I worked it, removed the shared Apple Pay, deauthorized the linked card, called the front desk and separated my room charges from any incidentals tied to her name, checked us out of the part of the booking that was under my card. No revenge, no public post, no screenshot war. I just turned off every access point one by one. Sierra came to my room an hour later. I opened the door because Benji was asleep and I didn't want her to knock again. "Can we talk?" she said. "Without the audience. Say what you need to say." She stood in the hallway. She didn't come in. I think she knew that if she stepped inside, it would mean I'd let her in again, and she could feel that door was closed. "I didn't mean for it to go like that," she said. "Which part?" "Any of it. I wasn't planning to leave him that long. I thought it would be 5 minutes. 10 tops. I thought I could do both, the house thing and watching him. I thought I could just pop in, say hi, take a few shots, and come back. He was near the fountain. There were people around. He's 6, I know. He doesn't know those people. I know." She pressed her palms against her eyes. When she dropped them, she looked different. Not better, just less constructed. "I liked being around you guys," she said. "I liked how it felt. I liked that people looked at me different when I was with you. Like I was, I don't know, real. Not just another girl at a thing. There it was. Not a confession of evil. Something sadder. She'd liked the feeling of being part of something she wasn't willing to actually be part of. She'd liked the optics of a family without wanting the weight of one. And yeah, she said, I use some of that for work. But everyone does that. Everyone shares their life. That's just how it works now. There's a difference between sharing your life and staging mine. I wasn't staging. You asked me for specific photos of my son. You told me it was for a mood board. You brought us to a venue you'd prearranged access to. You took my kid off the resort to a place you'd already told your group you were bringing us. And when he got lost, your first call was to Talia, not to me and not to security. She didn't deny any of it. She just stood there and did the thing people do when they've run out of narrative. She went quiet. You keep calling it a moment, I said, because that sounds smaller than a pattern. Her eyes got wet. I think she wanted me to see that and feel something. I did feel something. I just didn't let it change anything. Mason, you were good with him when he was easy, I said. When he needed you to be responsible, you disappeared. She wiped her eyes. So that's it? She nodded. Stood there for another second. Then she walked down the hallway and I closed the door. Behind me from the bed, a small voice. Are we leaving? Because it got loud. I turned around. Benji was sitting up, headphones around his neck, eyes half open. Yeah, buddy. It got a little loud. Okay, he said. And then, because he was 6 and the world was simple and he trusted me to handle the parts that weren't. Can I bring my sugar packets? Yeah. You can bring your sugar packets. He lay back down. I sat on the edge of the bed and put my hand on his back and felt him breathe. We left the next morning, early, before the pool opened, before the desert got loud, before Sierra or her friends or anyone else was up. In the car, Benji was quiet for the first hour. He watched the desert go by and held his row of sugar packets in a Ziploc bag on his lap like they were artifacts from an expedition. Then he said, Dad? Yeah. Is Sierra still your girlfriend? No? Because of the loud place? I thought about how to answer that. I thought about all the things I could say, because she lied, because she used us, because she wasn't who I thought she was. But he was 6, and he didn't need my verdict. He needed a version of the truth that fit his world. Because she made a choice about you that wasn't safe, I said. And people who are in our life need to be safe with you. He thought about this for a long time, longer than I expected. She was good at pool, he said. Yeah, she was, but picture Sierra leaves. I looked at him in the rearview mirror. He was staring out the window, not at me. He said it the way he said everything. Like a fact, like weather. Like a thing he'd observed and categorized and filed under the version name system he'd built to make sense of the adults around him. Picture Sierra leaves. 4 words. And they were more precise than anything I'd said in 2 days of confrontation. Because that was it. That was the whole diagnosis. There were 2 Sierras, and the one who showed up when it mattered wasn't the one who stayed. The pool version was warm and present, and good with a 6-year-old. The picture version had somewhere else to be. He'd seen it before I had. He'd named it before I could. And he'd said it without anger, without hurt, without any of the weight I was carrying. Just, picture Sierra leaves. 3 weeks later, Benji was at the kitchen table, drawing. He'd been drawing a lot since the trip. Not about the trip, just drawing. Houses and animals and a recurring shark fountain that I pretended not to notice. I walked by and looked over his shoulder. He'd drawn 5 people. 4 of them were inside a big rectangle, a house or a room. One of them was outside, at the edge of the paper, facing away. Who's that? I asked, pointing to the one outside. That's picture Sierra, not pool Sierra? He shook his head, kept coloring. No. Picture Sierra leaves. He said it the same way he'd said it in the car. No drama, no pain, Just the quiet certainty of a kid who had already sorted this and moved on. I stood there for a moment watching him fill in the colors. Then I went back to the dishes.
Here's what we can learn. OP used to think boundaries were the thing that made people leave, that if you set a line, you'd scare off anyone who wasn't already halfway out the door, that the price of protecting your kid was being alone, and you just had to decide which cost you could carry. But he was wrong. Boundaries don't make people leave. Boundaries show you who was only there for what they could access. The ones who leave when the rules change, they were never staying. They were browsing. They liked the display. They liked how it looked to be near something real. But the second that realness required something from them that didn't photograph well, they were already out the door. Sierra didn't leave because OP drew a line. She left because the line meant she couldn't take what she came for. And Benji, the kid OP, was so afraid of exposing to the wrong person. He'd figured that out before his father did. He didn't need the screenshots or the charges or the confrontation. He just needed to watch, the way kids watch, without the narratives adults build to avoid seeing what's in front of them. Picture Sierra leaves. Some people do. You let them.